We walked out to Common and John Legend's Oscar and Grammy-winning song, Glory, from the movie Selma, because today The View is honoring Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. Now, rather than starting the show with us talking, we wanted you to have the opportunity to listen to Dr. King himself explaining the unique history of being black in America in rare footage recently posted by his daughter Bernice. Take a look.
What is it about the Negro? I mean, every other group that came as an immigrant somehow, not easily, but somehow got around it. Is it just the fact that Negroes are black?
White America must see that no other ethnic group has been a slave on American soil. That is one thing that other immigrant groups haven't had to face. The other thing is that the color became a stigma. American society made the Negro's color a stigma. America freed the slaves in 1863 through the Emancipation Proclamation of Abraham Lincoln, but gave the slaves no land or nothing in reality, and as a matter of fact, to get started on. At the same time, America was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest, which meant that there was a willingness to give the white peasants from Europe an economic base. And yet it refused to give its black peasants from Africa, who came here involuntarily in chains and had worked free for 244 years, any kind of economic base. And so emancipation for the Negro was really freedom to hunger. It was freedom to the winds and rains of heaven. It was freedom without food to eat or land to cultivate, and therefore it was freedom and famine at the same time. And when white Americans tell the Negro to lift himself by his own bootstraps, they don't look over the legacy of slavery and segregation. I believe we ought to do all we can and seek to lift ourselves by our own bootstraps, but it's a cruel jest to say to a bootless man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps. And many Negroes, by the thousands and millions, have been left bootless as a result of all of these years of oppression and as a result of a society that deliberately made his color a stigma and something worthless and degrading.
The powerful words.
It is the clearest, most succinct thing I have ever seen that explains to people, you know, oftentimes people say, well, why do you talk about slavery? Why don't y'all just get over it? It's because it kind of, in a way, is never ending. It feels like that. You know, it feels like that because, you know, I know and remember watching, along with my mother, the fight as an American to get the right to vote, just the right to vote, and being born in this country. I didn't come from somewhere else. I was born here.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until '68 that the vote for black people was given in the entire nation. So there's so many things, you know, when people talk about being kept back and oppression and stuff, this is what people are talking about, that the playing field has never quite felt level.
Well, I was in 1968, and I remember when I turned 40, my father said to me, do you know that you are the first person in my family to enjoy full civil rights? And it sort of stopped me in my tracks and shook me to my core, because he followed that and said, well, maybe.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I mean, Martin Luther King is also talking about the financial inequities, which really set people back.
Yes.
You know, they gave all that land to white people, whether they were born here or not.
Yeah.
And besides the color stigma, there's also the financial disabilities, you could call it, that black people have had to endure. Right. So, and you know, of course, he mentions the fact that people just see color. They just see color. And it was like, it seemed like it was a deliberate way to oppress a people. A very deliberate. It wasn't just accidental. They deliberately did not give land to those people. It's really, it's the original sin of this country.
When I think of Dr. King, I I best say this quote to myself once a week. I can't take hate. It's too great a burden to bear. I'm going to stick with love. I think that is something that we should all say to ourselves. And that sometimes when I get so consumed with thinking about anger and thinking of what's going on in the country, there's so many amazing quotes that still are so resonant today. Another one is, there comes a time when silence is betrayal. And I think we're living in a moment when any silence, no matter where you're at, is a betrayal. And his legacy will continue to live on.
Yeah. And so
Forever and ever.
for all you young people who thought it was just I have a dream,
He is amazing. Yes.
no, it's not just that. This is the moment in American history where we all have to catch up. Because our history is American history. Your history is American history. We're all black, white, brown, yellow, orange. Yes, orange.
Oh my gosh.
I didn't mean it, but it came out anyway. But now is our moment to say, this is what this means. This is the inequity that people talk about. We got to balance each other, or none of us are balanced. It's either all of us or none of us.
Yeah.
I'm going for all of us. We'll be right back.
We, the black people, have been relegated to a subservient and second-class position in American society. The moment of truth has arrived. And may this moment continue to grow and to develop to the extent that everyone in the United States of America would recognize that the black man has indeed, from the inception of this country, been an integral part of the United States of America.
You know, Dr. King famously told us he'd seen the promised land, but might not get there with us. He didn't, but he definitely showed us the way to get there ourselves, including a lot of guests who sat at this very table. Take a look.
Dr. King, for me as a black boy, was like one of the first black men that I saw in my history books that was celebrated by black people and white people. Black people embraced him, white people embraced him because he was about love.
Martin Luther King Jr. was in jail in Birmingham, and the jailers came to him and said, Dr. King, you're wrong. Segregation is right. He said, no, it's not. He said, the way of righteousness is right. And then he asked them, how much money do you make? And then when they told him, he said, well, hell, you need to be marching with us.
Dr. King set out a standard. Yes, you have to have moral witness, but you're supposed to be calling people up, not just calling them out. And there's a way that sometimes we get so frustrated that we're just calling people out and forgetting to call them up.
I don't think that the Ku Klux Klan has gotten a memo that we're free and that we all belong. Everybody belongs, no matter what color you are, what gender. It's ridiculous what's going on out here.
We live in America right now where we've evolved. We believe that a man can be a woman trapped in a woman's body, a woman can be a man trapped, but we inherently believe that black people are criminal.
Your very blackness by birth has been demonized and weaponized and is considered inherently threatening and less than.
So often when people are killed, and particularly people of color are killed by the police, we have a moment of outcry and then we sort of move on.
I don't believe in stereotypes. I believe we have 324 million people in this country. You can't tell me that you can put people in the box.
It's hard being a woman of color in the world and just in the business, in the industry where they tell you you're not enough or no one wants to see you. No one's going to pay dollars to come and see you. Can't carry a movie.
I'd show up with my little portfolio. They look at it and they go, we already have a black girl. Oh. And guess how many models they would have? 200 models.
When I first started in this business, one reporter said, well, Charlie, how does it feel to be the Jackie Robinson of country music? So, Charlie, how does it feel to be the first colored country singer? So, Charlie, how does it feel to be the first Negro country singer? Charlie, how does it feel to be the first Afro-American country singer? Well, hold on. I said, I feel the same way I did when I was colored.
All of America is made up of immigrants. And to the universe, there are no borders.
I am an American. I was born and raised an American, but also feeling linked to my family and their culture and where they come from. And it's sort of this thing of like when you're both, you're kind of neither. And then I grew up and realized this is millions millions of Americans experiences.
The number, the population of Indian Americans in America has tripled since that time. So the voice is louder. Representation and the demand for representation for people of color is louder.
We all got to this country in different ways through our ancestry, but we're all in the same boat now. And to try to think we're going to demonize each other so bad, we need each other.
Anytime someone, black, white, Asian, Latino, whoever, exhibits a moment of a lack of awareness about something, and then they quickly apologize and get it, part of us moving on and healing as a country and as a people is embracing that apology, being like, all right, brother, you could actually be closer as a result of that, because then they understand something on a deeper level.
Racism is hereditary. It is passed down. You teach it to your children. It grows generation to generation. And you have to know that you can have it inside you. You're susceptible to it. But if we treated it like a disease, we wouldn't shun people. I don't understand how we think it's going to change when we go, you're a racist, get out of here.
We all live in the same house, the American house, the world house. And we must learn to live together as brothers and sisters, as Dr. King would put it, or we would perish as fools.
We'll be right back.
Next, Spike Lee on the Oscar buzz around his latest hit movie, Black Klansman,
God bless white America.
and why it's more relevant now than ever.
My life. And I want to thank each one of you who had a part in selecting me for one of the awards. For your kindness, it has made me feel very, very humble. And I shall always hold it as a beacon for anything that I may be able to do in the future. I sincerely hope I shall always be a credit to my race and to the motion picture industry. My heart is too full to tell you just how I feel. And may I say thank you. And God bless you.
You know, the one and only Spike Lee is at the top of his game with this latest flick, baby, Black Klansman, the true story of how a black man was able to infiltrate a Colorado chapter of the Ku Klux Klan in 1970s. Take a look. Yeah, baby.
I'm wearing my Morehouse school jacket.
I see.
Dr. Martin Luther King. My father was a freshman when Dr. King was a senior. Samuel Jackson was a couple of years ahead of me.
Right.
And Martin Luther King III and I were classmates.
Right.
Class 79, Morehouse College.
All right.
I got that today.
I love that. It's good to see you, man. You know, you just walked up to the classic Ball of Confusion.
Yes.
Which is in the film. And the film's getting a lot of attention. A lot of attention. It's got an Oscar attention. It's got Golden Globe nominations. It was at Cannes and took second place. So you just got your first DGA nomination?
Ever.
Ever? Well, let me ask you this. I just, you know.
What's the question?
You know what the question is. That's not the question I'm going to ask you, but I'm going to ask you a different question. How hard was it to get this film made?
Easy.
Oh, really?
Jordan Peele. Get out.
Give
it up.
Yeah. So where did this idea come from for this film?
It's a book.
It was a book.
Yeah.
And Jordan Peele came to me. It was a whole bunch of people, but he called me up and gave me a 6-word pitch. Black man infiltrates Ku Klux Klan.
It's hilarious right there.
It's absurd.
Yeah.
And that's where the humor comes from.
Yeah.
It's not like we were writing jokes.
Right.
You know, the humor is organic from the absurdity of the whole pitch.
Yeah.
So
and
you,
it's true.
And a true story.
So here you are, really a groundbreaking director of color, one of maybe two. And now you get this film, and Jordan Peele says, here's this great idea, and you say, okay. What made you think people would buy it?
Well, there was a script already.
Okay.
So I knew they wanted me to rewrite it with my co-writer, Kevin Wilmot.
Right.
But the thing I knew, and I told Kevin this, in order for this film to be successful, we have to tie the past with the present.
Right.
Because the film takes place in the mid-'70s.
Yes. Yeah.
So we don't do that. It's just like, that happened in the 70s. We had to connect the past to the present. Then, less than a month before we start to shoot, Charlottesville.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that cemented it.
Yeah.
So I knew that was the ending.
Right. So brilliant. It is so brilliant. I just can't even tell you.
You know, the other day, yesterday, I was watching this discussion about Steve King, you know, this congressman who uses these terms. He's a white nationalist and blah, blah, blah. And then I saw Governor Kasich talking about it, and they asked him, do you think that Trump's words, as you mentioned, Charlottesville, is that as bad? Is there something there? And he said no. He said Trump never called himself a white nationalist. He never said he was a white supremacist. So he
Deeds, not words.
Yeah, exactly. And I thought
did call himself a nationalist.
But I thought Kasich let him off the hook. They're letting
this
Trump
guy's
off
been
the
saying
hook.
it's not new.
Yeah. Well,
It's old. It's just old.
long time this story been out there.
Yeah,
You know, he
I
is
mean,
who he
for whatever reason, nobody, I don't know, but it's old.
Well, you know, in the film, John David Washington, Denzel Washington's son.
Wait, don't leave out his mother.
And his
Pauletta.
Pauletta,
Yeah.
who is just an incredible also woman. And
Yes.
herself. But he plays Ron Stallworth.
Right.
And Whoopi was saying during the clip, you just hear Denzel's voice.
But you hear that
they
voice.
sound so much alike. He's his eldest son, and you've known him since he was a baby.
I knew it before he was born.
Before he was born. You didn't have him audition for this. How did you know he was Ron Stallworth?
My spidey sense.
You just knew. Because, I mean, he embodies this
I've
character.
been in this game a long time, and, you know, I knew he could do it.
You
so
just knew it.
No audition, no put on tape. I said, I offered him the role.
Right.
He was in Cincinnati shooting a film, call him up, send him the book, the script.
Yep.
He said, well, let's go. That was it.
Wow.
I listened to the book, and I have to tell you, it's really funny because you keep thinking, now they're going to figure this out. They're gonna, at some point, they're going to know.
That's when I met the real Ron Stallworth. That was my first question to him.
Yeah.
How come the Klan didn't recognize different voices?
Yeah.
He said they did it. But I said, the audience, they're not going to believe that. So I wrote a scene specifically where we bring up this thing about, your voice sounds different. Yeah, I got allergies. We had to put that in for the audience.
Yeah.
Because just to say they didn't recognize the voice,
I want to ask you this. The rock band The Killers
Yes.
just released a new song called Land of the Free, and you directed a film for this song with scenes of migrants at the U.S.-Mexico border, and we have a clip. Please take wheelchairs lifted over. What was it like there?
Well, I first like to give the shout out to Brandon Flowers, the guy of The Killers. He called me out of nowhere, and he said, I got a song. He told me he had just seen Black Clan. It's just... And then, make quickly how he tried to criminalize, saying, he started earlier during the campaign, all Mexicans are rapists, murderers, drug dealers, and then he said, with the caravan that was coming, well, there's some people from Middle East, and so he's trying to say there was
terrorists there.
There are people who walk hundreds of miles in flip-flops. So unless they made up some nuclear bomb flip-flops, I mean,
When those two kids died,
Three
they
have
basically,
died.
three of them now, they blame it on the parents. Instead of the fact that they're...
And also, the national parks, I think 2 or 3 people have died in national parks since this whole thing. So this is like, this is bananas. This is crazy time.
You know, you need to come back. You haven't been here nearly enough.
Yes.
So you need to, like, get in the
I gotta be invited, like the DGA.
Standing invitation.
You know you gotta make another movie.
I just can't walk up in here.
Yeah, no, you can. You have an open invitation to come
Thank
anytime.
you very much.
Anytime. Our thanks to Spike Lee, members of our audience. You are lucky, honey. You are going home. Thing from religion, gang culture, economic equality on his new Netflix series, Trigger Warning with Killer Mike. Please welcome Michael Render, better known as Killer Mike.
So we're celebrating Martin Luther King Jr. Day.
Absolutely.
And you recently wrote an article about what everyone should be doing today instead of just sort of hanging out and taking the day off?
There's nothing wrong with a day off. You know, Queen of England don't work. I don't really want to work either. But I will say, as Americans, we should take this opportunity, and I think even globally, to use these days to give back. So for holidays, Christmas, Thanksgiving, oftentimes not. So today, I just challenge people to take an hour of your day and do something pro-positive for the community, whether that's feeding the hungry or giving homeless people socks, whether that's being a part of a social justice organization, if you're a lawyer, lending an hour to them or another person. But Dr. King was about action, not just words. So I think that this day is a day of action.
Right.
You and Dr. King both grew up in Atlanta, Georgia, and you've been an activist since you were young. Atlanta fans in here. Since you were a young kid. Who originally taught you about activism?
My grandmother, Betty Cluntz, was from Tuskegee, Alabama.
Grandma.
Yeah, her grandfather had been involved, a victim of things like...
Rap music.
That's my girl.
That's your grandma.
Yeah, her grandfather, you know, the horrors of the Tuskegee experiment visited our family and things of that nature, but I think it gave my grandmother a will to want to leave the world better. She was a nurse. She, I remember going on campaigns for Andrew Young, who's also a lieutenant of Dr. King, right there by her knee, and she taught me the importance. She marched in Selma, she marched in Birmingham, and she taught me the importance of judging people on their character, of pushing for equality for everyone, and it was just something I couldn't escape. And she, you know, made people call me Michael Render and not Killer Mike.
You don't like that, huh?
Well, she didn't like it. I liked it.
Yeah. So, you know, I know that you campaigned for Bernie Sanders.
I did.
Love Bernie.
I did. I like his qualities.
Yeah.
As a person, he's cool too.
What's that?
As a person, I like him a lot too.
Yes.
He's the OG. But his political agenda and his platform is what drew me to him.
Yes, of course. And also, I understand that there's something about him that Martin Luther King is connected to.
Well, besides that, the fact that he really was an organizer and, you know, got locked up and, you know, the police roughed him up in Chicago. We got the picture to prove it.
Oh, yeah. This was they released the photos. Sorry.
Yeah. But besides that, there's a transformative power in Dr. King's policy. Whether you look up Kingian nonviolence, or you look up economic equality, or the ending of war and the proliferation of corporations over local, all of that was found on Sanders' campaign. All of that started with the little bitty black boy born in the 4th Ward of Atlanta, Georgia, who went on to become a minister, went to Morehouse, same college me and Spike went to. All of these ideas come from the working class and the poor. So what Bernie's campaign reminded me is that my fight is there with the working class and with the poor and with the proletariat. It's not with the political oligarchy. It's not with those that are rich or affluent enough to escape politics. It is firmly with the working class. That's why I supported him now. That's why I supported him then. That's why I'll forever support him.
So you think he's going to run again?
I don't know. He told me.
Does he have a shot?
I think he's the only person that could beat him.
Really?
Really?
I do.
You have a new show on Netflix called Trigger Warning. What's the show about?
The show is about us pushing the line. I have been told my whole life that black gangs were the worst plight amongst black community. They were no good. And at the same time, I look at TV and I see white crime celebrated. I celebrate Sonny Bolger. I celebrate Al Capone. I celebrate the Irish Mafia, all these other things. So I went to my Crip and my Blood homeboys and I say, hey, you guys are in the game. Unlike the Hells Angels, you have not trademarked yourself. You have not set yourself aside as a legitimate business, so you can't sell T-shirts. But Nike can sell blue Nikes. Levi's can sell blue bandanas hanging out of one side. You should be taking advantage of capitalism because that curbs poverty and violence. I took 4 young men who were members of a Crip organization on an adventure to try to start Cripa-Cola. We started a soda company. I loved drinking Coca-Cola when I was a kid. My trainer doesn't let me drink it now. I think that if you take economics and implant it in the organization of gang structure in black community, you can start to create a business model that'll work. And you get to watch the show and see if it works.
Well, speaking of guns, in one of the episodes, you have a discussion with a woman about banning guns, and the conversation quickly turned into who commits the most robberies. It took a really strange turn. Watch this.
I think both the robbers, and most of them are black.
Really? You think most robbers are black? You think we cause most of the problems,
Well,
right?
I'm getting everything from the news.
Well, the news is bad. The news is like what did you guys say, fake news?
Fake news.
Yeah, I think it's set up to keep people who look like me and you afraid of one another. Because as long as we're afraid of one another, we kind of are here. But if we ever start dialoguing and talking and kind of got to here, I think we will require the news to present the news differently.
Well, you're probably right there.
Yeah.
But I still think most of the shootings and robberies were done by black.
All the mass shootings in this country are white people.
I agree.
Yeah.
Did you ever change her opinion at the end? Or?
My job is not to change her opinion. It is to present an alternative to the perception of reality we all agree to.
Our thanks to Michael Render and his new show, Trigger Warning,
Thank
with
you all.
Phil and Mike. Is streaming now on Netflix. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.
People look at me and are going to make judgments about women, about black people, about black women in particular, depending on how I do in the program. So in that case, yes, I'm aware that there's some additional pressures or stresses there. Yet at the same time, I try not to look at that too much, because if I dwell on it for a long time, then it starts to affect the way I interact with people and the way I interact with myself even.
Here to perform a tribute to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and all those fighting to realize his dream of equality. Please welcome 5-time Grammy Award winner Yolanda Adams and a 13-year-old gospel prodigy who Jay-Z put in the spotlight, Miles Caton.